My question is to the Ambulance Services Minister, Ms Mikakos. It's about the heartbreaking case of Gail Hubbard, who died in Seymour on the 7th of October 2019 while awaiting an ambulance crew's arrival. Gail's husband, Tony, who could even see the Seymour ambulance station from his home, was led to believe by an ESTA worker that an ambulance's arrival was imminent. The worker repeatedly said to him, quote, "The ambulance is on its way," but by Tony's call log, its arrival tragically took 43 minutes. Minister, in this 20th of January letter to Mr Hubbard, Ambulance Victoria promised to raise with ESTA his suggestions that an estimated arrival time should always be quoted whenever someone requests an ambulance through a 000 call. Has that now been done, and if so, what was the outcome? Or if not, could you advise why not?
Minister.
Thank you, and I do thank Ms Maxwell for her question, and I want to reassure her and the House that I have also written to Ms Hubbard's family to express my sincere condolences to both her husband and to her entire family on her tragic death. I understand that Ambulance Victoria has also met with Ms Hubbard's family on several occasions and apologised for the long response time. I know there has been some contention around the exact time, and that is a matter that of course is in dispute, but clearly the response time was unacceptable. We know that there are still times when ambulances don't arrive as fast as we'd like, and this is why it's important that these instances are thoroughly reviewed. And I understand that Ambulance Victoria did in fact examine this particular case in thorough detail. So whilst Ambulance Victoria did everything they could with the availability of paramedics not on other jobs at the time, the government will continue working with local communities to ensure ambulances arriving even sooner. It is important to understand that despite the proximity of a case to an ambulance branch, our paramedics are often out on cases or in hospitals and respond to emergencies wherever they are, not only from their home branch. In cases where a patient is identified as needing an emergency ambulance, the nearest appropriate ambulance is always dispatched. Ambulance Victoria has a sophisticated communications and dispatch system which provides an accurate picture of emergency ambulance coverage across all Victorian locations at all times. It's simply not reasonable to expect an ambulance will always be waiting at a station when another is on a job. This would take resources away from other areas and may come at the expense of the patients in that region. I point out that, as the member would be aware, that Seymour does have a 24-hour ambulance station, and I'll continue to take advice from Ambulance Victoria in relation to paramedic resourcing and operational matters. Since 2015, I do want to advise the member that we have in fact put in place more than 120 new paramedics and other first responders in the Hume region. That's nearly 25% more resources than the previous Liberal National Government provided by the end of their term in office. And the latest quarterly performance data shows our paramedics in Hume responded to 4,300 emergency cases in that final quarter in 2019, 332 more cases than the same period a year earlier. As a result of our unprecedented investment, in fact, the response times is actually 6 minutes faster than what we inherited when Mr Davis and Ms Crozier were in charge.
Order. Ms Maxwell with a supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister. As indeed you would be aware, the response times, not to mention the resourcing of ambulances, continues to cause significant problems and concerns not only in Seymour but across the electorate of Northern Victoria. And this is unfortunately not an isolated case. Minister, can you explain how it is possible for people these days to be able to track and follow the location of things like ride-sharing or pizza delivery vehicles that are on their way to them, and yet there are still unable to have any idea of something as critical as how far away an urgently required ambulance is?
Minister.
Thank you. I thank the member for her further question. As I explained previously, Ambulance Victoria has this communicated dispatch system where they themselves can see where their ambulances are at any point in time. ESTA is a separate system. It is a system that they do take the calls and process that calls as they come through on that 000 number. In terms of the matter that the member raised previously, in terms of the correspondence that Ambulance Victoria have provided to Ms Hubbard's family, the advice that I have is that they are following up those issues with ESTA directly. And I'm happy to provide the member with further advice once that issue is resolved. But it's important to understand that Ambulance Victoria and ESTA systems are separate systems. Ambulance Victoria can see where their ambulances are. ESTA is receiving emergency calls for various emergency services, not just ambulance, police, of course, and the fire brigade and other services. So I'm happy to have a further discussion with the member once I receive that advice.